now I get a chance to speak to somebody who is absolutely a force of nature on the bandstand. And I often wonder with this cat when he realized that he was merely a conduit for information coming through him from the heavens, and that when he got out of his own way and allowed the information to come through him, he could inspire other people, make people rejoice, make people be happy just through his own sheer presence on the bandstand with so many luminary figures. Jonas Hellborg, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, grazie.
It's an
Pleasure to be
honor,
here.
my brother. It's an honor, my friend. Hey, can you answer that question? Is it too esoteric, or when did you realize? Was there a defining moment or something that's in your head that you can point to when you realized that when you were getting out of your own way, that when you allowed information to come through you, that that was your gift to the world, and even though you were only partially responsible for that, but ultimately your job was to inspire other people to be themselves.
It's a bit of a complicated question to answer because although it's a valid one, the way I look at it now from over the years is that it was very much of being part of something rather than any kind of individual achievement or benefit for any other individual. It was just this massive movement of togetherness. I guess something happened in the late 60s that just cracked open minds of a whole generation of several generations actually, and everything bled into each other and everything became one. There was no difference between pop music and jazz music and rock music and classical music and film and literature. It was all one big thing, and everybody wanted to be part of it, participate. And that's where it started for me, and I was just blown away by all the impressions that happened, like the different musics and films and literature and philosophy and religion and art, and so I just wanted to be part of it, and that's what propelled me forwards. And when people told me that, oh no, you cannot do that, oh they are much greater than you, and I didn't see it. It was not about anybody being greater than anybody else. It was just like, this soup is just too good. We just all have to dig in.
Wait, hold on. I want to be clear about something. I mean, you were still a fairly young lad at that time, but I remember when I interviewed one of your compadres, and we'll get into that later, John McLaughlin. He talked about Aldous Huxley, Doors of Perception, psychedelics. How can you, from your younger point of view, I mean, you were only like 12 or 13 years old maybe at that time, but in the late 60s, but how did it, go ahead, talk about the merging, like how did it, because I'm with you, everything, it was, at least for music, I can't speak for film and other forms of art per se, but the Duke Ellington School of Music was alive and well at that time, that it's all music.
Yeah. Well, yes, I was young, but I was part of it. I was already taking part in that kind of. I almost want to call it hippie movement, but it's so much bigger than the hippie movement.
Yeah.
It was everything. All of society was in turmoil, and you had the beats coming into their maturity, like, and influencing everybody. the oddballs like Ginsberg and Bill Burrs were like influencing mainstream literature and intellectualism, and it was just a massive togetherness. And yeah, I was young, but I was part of it. I was already into Hendrix and Cream at that point. I started, actually, I had an interesting musical interest when I was a very young kid. I was into the blues when I was about 9-10 years old. I was into like Leadbelly and Big Bill Bronzy, and
You were collecting those Folkways records.
yeah, pretty much, yes. So Sonny Terry, Brown McGee, all that kind of stuff. And then from that, I kind of moved into the electric music of the time. And before the blues thing, I was into the Beatles. It was like my little pop era.
Everybody was, yeah, no, totally, yeah.
And then through the blues, I came into Hendrix and to Cream and all that. And then very quickly, I graduated into the electric jazz of the time, like Miles and Mahavishnu and all that. But there was no borders between them. It was all the same thing for me. Black Sabbath and Mahavishnu was the same thing. There was no difference. It was this like very edgy, distorted sound that enveloped you.
Well, but it was also like, let's be clear, you can rip on this. Nothing was being like today in movies. You get the sequels and the sequels and the sequels, and in music, a lot of instrumental music, improvisational music, it's hard to tell who each person is anymore. Whereas at that time, it was original tunes, and everybody was searching for that individual's. In fact, if somebody came up to David Garibaldi from Tower of Power and was like, "Yo, you sounded great. You sounded just like Sam Lay," he'd want to slit his wrists. Nobody wanted to sound like anybody,
Yeah, no, exactly, and that is exactly what it's about, and that is this sort of, back then was a struggle of everybody was into the same thing. Now everybody is into themselves. Yes. Now everybody wants to be contain the whole world within them and be admired for being the world. And it's an enormous egocentricity and narcissism. Back then, it was everybody was into it. People were not into themselves. They were into their contribution to the world of experience. And by doing that, they were able to be themselves. Everybody was themselves because nobody was concerned about being admired or being recognized as something different. And that paradoxically became this individuality because nobody tried to copy anybody else. It was that, like, just like you say, like everybody had their own star.
You could tell. I mean, you could tell. I used to consider it a badge of honor because as a rogue journalist, I got to him, but now I'm kind of ashamed. I did 2 interviews with Bill Cosby, not about his comedic career, but about his love of jazz. I mean, he wanted to be Tony Williams, but he told me, he goes, you could put a blindfold on me, and put on any Blue Note record, and I could tell you the difference between Pete LaRocca, Mickey Roker, Max Roach, Tony Williams. Everyone had their own character symbol, and for bass players too. But I have to ask you, and because I don't want to oversimplify it, because like you said, the hippie movement, but it was kind of like it was the reason that term actually does kind of make some sense, because it was like you said, a movement of togetherness. So it was a communal thing.
Yeah.
But could you talk about, if nothing else, this egoless sort of individual? Nobody was caught up in controlling the world within their little, bubble. How much did psychedelics play a role in that?
Enormously. it was enormously important, and
In Sweden too. In Sweden as well.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
You know, people were dropping acid here too. I mean, it was, and there was something that happens, even though there are great dangers with doing those kind of things.
Yeah.
For me, it was crucial, because when I had my first acid trips, it cracked my head open. I all of a sudden realized how much more there is in the world than what I would have known before.
Mm-hmm.
And I attribute that to doing this. And it's I don't think I would have been what I am without dropping acid.
I think yeah, Johnny would say the same thing. You know, it was
yeah.
It broke your head open. I mean, these were like, can you talk about a seminal experience? I mean, and also like, because, you know, at that time, where is Sandoz in Sweden? I mean, where was they were making the acid was compared to when I was at Boston University in the late 90s. Yeah. I mean, I was tripping out on like, you know, sort of, some sort of placebo cocktail of acid. It was not the most beautiful every chemist in every university, they were making it. In San Francisco, it was legal. I just wonder if you talk about, you know, whether it was on the bandstand or whether it was in the woods, or what was a defining experience that took you so far outside of what you thought you knew about this life?
Oh my God, how can I? It's a big topic, and no, of course, the whole thing about that, there was a whole culture around it, of course, and people said that you have to do this, you have to be in the forest, you have to. Right. But what struck me is that when I listen to music, for instance, when I was tripping, I could hear things that I couldn't hear before. I heard relations, I heard depth, I heard pitch relations, I heard structures. I could see the music, how it was unfolding. And also I could see people's insecurities and untruthfulness. You know, it was just so obvious. But people would say things that were blatant lies, and it was, you couldn't be fooled. It was like, it just right there. It was okay. So you would just laugh at it,
I guess maybe some people would say also that you know, they say it's an ego deflator. It can be a humbling experience.
Yes, you know? Very much. I mean, I guess that is a great part of it, that you realize that you are part of everything. You're not individual. You are not an ego. You are nothing if you're not connected to the universe, to the world. If you're going to play music, you have to be connected with the music. It's not you making music. It's you are part of music. And that is what it did. And actually, the benefit was not necessarily during the high itself. It was what happened afterwards. It was just like somebody unlocked the door and you walked through it, and then on the other side you would find so much that I mean, it's hard to chart it. I mean, it is my life after that.
That is so beautiful.
No, you know, it was like sort of going from black and white to full color.
The spectrum, the full spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, so much as, you know, 46, my generation and younger, we try to, there is incredible musicians, an incredibly young farm system in Tucson, Arizona, where I live, people that are making original music. They obviously have their rudiments in place, but it's very inspiring to see that yet there are not enough venues that pay in order for musicians to really do well. And the other thing is, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but so many guys that I talked to, Mike Clark was with his dad in the bars at
Yeah.
9 or 10 years old.
Hmm.
I'm just curious about the early bar club scene. How early you were on the bandstand in Sweden?
Well, I mean, I was out playing in front of people very early, but it was not like it is in America, or like it was in America, for instance, or other countries in Europe. It was not, you were not making any money from playing, but there were festivals and small clubs and places you could play, but it was pretty much you didn't make anything. But that
Were
was
you
not.
busking at all? Were you busking on the streets at all?
No, 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 no. It was. I did that also a little bit, but that was later.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, no, no, it was just like people organized their own kind of venues and performances and concerts and stuff, but it was never really about making a living. But then another part of Sweden at the time was that nobody needed to make a living. It was a very advanced form of socialism where somehow you were taken care of. You nobody was struggling
That's so
in
beautiful.
terms,
My God.
yeah, in terms of material needs or anything. Everybody, there was ways of existing, so that was never a problem. But yes, so pretty early on, I was playing, and then gradually I would get into in my later teens actually playing paid gigs and stuff like that.
And so
But that yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just curious. Like I would love you to talk about like where I don't know the kind of music that you were playing because that was seminal. Like I remember people seeing Weather Report early,
Yeah.
in folk clubs or Mahavishnu in doing radio stations 71, where
Mm.
amplification was getting much better, but you were still seeing this early fusion, this electric fusion,
Mm.
uh, like in its early infancies. Uh, were you finding those records in the stores? When did you actually
Oh
get
yeah.
hit? I'm curious because like you always had a very eclectic taste in your music. Was that the kind of music that you were playing when you started to play in those? I mean, it says somewhere that you started to play in rock groups, but again, I
Yeah.
hate genres of music. So I mean, how would you describe the music that you guys were, and what kind of band was it?
Uh, when I started out, it was always almost no, it was always bass guitar drums trio. That was the format all the time until I was about maybe 16, 17 when I started playing fusion music, which was probably like 72, 73, something like that. But before then it was just you know blues rock or whatever you would call it, like the Cream, Hendrix, that sort of
And
vibe.
it was never with the upright. It was always electric,
Always electric. Yeah, yeah. Was
electric bass. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. From the beginning, and yeah, and then what happened was I started listening to people who were sort of telling me, oh, if you're going to become a professional musician, you have to play this kind of music or that kind of music, or and I tried to kind of conform and try to get into bands that were actually having gigs and compromising what I actually was playing in terms of style of music. And then pretty quickly I just realized, no, if that's going to be the case, then I'd rather not be a professional. Then I'll find another kind of job, and I just play the music I want to play. And at that point, I was kind of experimenting with this solo bass idea, and I sent some demo tapes out, and I got the radio gig, and then I got the recording of that radio gig, and I sent that to the Montreux Jazz Festival, amongst others, and they invited me to come and play, and I went there and played, and that's where I met John and Mike Brecker and Cobham and all these people, and that was the start of my career, quote unquote.
Going back to can you just talk about the construction of this double bass? I mean, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
As I was passing out last night, I was like looking at these. I don't try to do over research any of my guests, but I just was like, I wanted to. You played with so many of my elders that have just been like so supportive of helping me find my voice, and I'm watching these. I'm watching these videos of you and Billy Cobham and John, and it's just like, I mean, I stayed up for like an hour. I was just whatever, if I was tired or whatever, well, it didn't matter anymore. It was just pure bliss. But going back to going back to this idea, the people that had gigs, they were whatever, top 40 gigs, or
you could say,
but what at that time, way before 81, way before Montreux, at that time, what was compromise? What was the music that you heard in your head that you were searching for? Because it was something beyond just comping or copying what you already knew was there.
Yes, indeed. No, it was. I was very much into. Definitely. I mean, for me, when I was about 14, I heard Mahavishnu in a Mounting Flame, and that really blew my mind totally. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to go that. I wanted to play with Jonas. Actually, that was my big dream.
I want to be clear though, because this is really important.
Yeah, that was my big. Yeah. And then around the same time, I heard this very absurd group from England called Backdoor, which was bass, saxophone, and drums.
I've seen those records, man. There's like a picture of a wind, like there's a sheep on the
exactly.
Oh my God, they're nasty, man.
Yeah, and what blew me away was Colin Hodgkins on the bass player, who was doing chords, and he was doing all these different things. And that is really what inspired me to go into the solo bass thing. So that is what I was working on. I was doing that, trying to develop chord stuff on bass and trying to find a way of playing that kind of Mahavishnu music. But that was impossible where I was. There were no people who could do that.
Nobody in the world could do that.
No, and then I was into. I was very much into to jazz, like older jazz at the time, and transcribing Coltrane and McCoy Tyner and all this kind of stuff. And I lost my there.
No, it's fine. The point is that you were you in the early 70s? Were you beginning to write original music?
Yes. I mean, all the time.
Because that's the Hellborg music. That's the music I want to. That because.
Yeah, no, this is what I was going to say. Like before then, at the time also, I was studying classical music as well. I was studying composition and doing like the whole counterpoint and traditional harmony, doing all that kind of stuff on the side as I was studying also jazz, and I was getting all these worlds inside my head. I was very much into Bela Bartok, for instance. He still is a great influence on me, but I was checking that out, and also all these avant-garde people, John Cage, Stockhausen, and
Luciano Berio.
Yeah, Berio and Lutoslavsky, Penderecki.
Oh my God!
So it was a chaos. But the thing was that, as I said in the beginning, for me it was all the same thing. There was no difference, and I just needed to find a way of playing and making this music. And but I think what is crucial here, what is central to this whole problem, is that if you look at what people did back then and what people do now, is the technology that everybody centered around was the record player. It was the listening to music. It was a stereo system was like the technological treasure. Now it has turned into the bloody mobile telephone or the computer or the tablet. And so what people are interested in and what people are centering around is this other activities, like games and programming and artificial intelligence and all that. It is not the magic of sound, for instance, or the magic of the cinema, for instance, for that matter. And so when you have this centerpiece of the whole culture, which is listening to something, you listen to different things, and you meet people, and have you heard this record? And you sit down in a group of people and you listen to a record, or have you heard this kind of music, or my God, how do you do that? Oh, I have to figure this out, and it's a whole different activity, and that is what's lacking today. That's what's missing.
I also wonder, I think you're 100% right. It's you and your bandmates were also doing communal listening. You were listening together. The listening in isolation today is it stunts the ability for musical vocabulary to grow.
Yeah. But at the same time, what I want to say with that is that for me it's not judgmental, because now kids are into different things. They don't have to be into what I was into when I was a kid, but the development of music and what you mentioned in the beginning here now, the individuality, the individual voices of people, that all that it comes from that collective engagement in something that is a common universe back then, and now the common universe is computers. It's not music. It's not the act of listening. It's not, you don't get together about it. And computers separate people, because you can pretend that you are together with computers. In the field of music, for instance, what do people do when they make records these days? They sit in the bedrooms and they record on their computer and then send files to each other. That is not playing together. That is just like construction.
You've had a mystical experience. Do you consider yourself some kind of because the way it reads is that some of the most important connections and intersections of your career sort of occurred in almost a magical sense. And the first cat I wanted to ask you about is Rebop.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I interviewed David Hood from Fame, from Muscle Shoals, the Swampers, and Rebop's there in the early '70s playing on those live Traffic albums that were in the States, and now here Brother Hellborg's connecting with him. How did that? Did you know him going into that, or you just met him randomly?
No, he had a Swedish wife, so he was in Stockholm frequently. And I was playing a gig in a small club in Stockholm, and he just showed up at the gig. He had heard about me, and he came and we jammed, and he said, "You have to come to England with me." So next week I was in London.
Wow! Wait, and that was, and what year was that?
Ooh, I forget now. It must have been like 1980 or something like that, 80 or 81.
And what, at that point, you were okay playing smaller clubs, but how did your world open up once you moved there?
Well, being around him in England at the time, that was another kind of trip. But basically, we just stayed in London for, I think I was there for maybe 8 or 9 months, working on his record, and we had some people sponsoring the thing, so we just had money to live and eat, and and then we were just recording and recording and recording and recording and recording and recording. It was endless. It was he was part owner in the recording studio at the time.
This is amazing. I mean, you were essentially like, had you, because you put out your first solo album in '79.
Yeah.
Was that the album you were working on, or you were working on one of Reebok's albums?
No, that I had done that already. I think, if I remember right, was it that? Yeah,
I'm still looking for that record, by the way. Like, I need to hear that record.
Okay, I will make a copy for you. I have it here, so I will make a copy and send it.
Were you into? I mean, you never played the upright, but were you hip to guys like Francois Rabath from France? You know, like, these guys were like, that's what I wanted to talk about. Is like, it might be too simplistic to say third stream music, but
third stream, yeah.
Is that fair? I mean, because like with Joe Zawinul, even Mahavishnu electrically, I mean, there was so much classical influence in that music, and there was also rock, and there was also odd times and Indian.
Yeah.
I mean, was it all, going back to our original movement of togetherness? The goal of your point of view in music was to consistently combine all musics together. Has it always been that way, or
no, actually, it has never been that way. You know, it's not. I'm not trying to bring anything together. It's just I don't see the separations. I don't see difference between that and that kind of music. I mean, of course, I do it on a certain level. It's stylistically obvious that you do different things, but the content and the essence of the music is, you can take any kind of part out of something and use it. Wait, where did it start from?
I'm sure I would love you to break down the kind of when you got to London, the sort of, if that was the first time you started to actually have the live experience of playing, you know, West African music, you know, like or even like Trinidadian music, or, you know, that
no, it was nothing like that. That was more like a fusion thing, what I was doing with Reebok, and the whole thing just collapsed because he died, and I was on my way to doing other things after that. But it was more like a learning experience in terms of playing with people, recording, and all this, and then the whole other thing came and happened, like the Montreal Jazz Festival and John McLaughlin and all this, and Mahavishnu, and going to New York and all this kind of stuff.
The other thing, before we get into that, is that I had this CD in my car for 5 years, you know, and I really, not being a musician, but, you know, I have just immense reverence for Ali Akbar Khan and Ravi Shankar. But the one guy, I had the CD from a guy who seems to, I mean, he was obviously a master, but I need you to talk about Sultan Khan. I mean, not just how you met, but I mean, who was this person? Who was he? I mean, was he one of these guys who came from this lineage of, you know, traveling India, his father, you know, I mean, these guys, Ravi,
So Sultan Khan was he was very much connected to Al Arak and to Zakir Hussain in a sense, but he comes from a lineage of musicians himself. There is a whole school that he is part of, and he has sons and nephews and that are playing, that are great Indian musicians now. No, he's really one of the North Indian superstars of music, and I got to play with him just because I was doing some stuff with Faisal Qureshi, who is Zakir Hussain's brother, and it was Faisal who brought us together. He said, come and play here in India, and we'll do something with Sultan Khan, and that's how that happened. But that was just 1 week that we were in India and playing together. So that was very short thing.
That was my other question, was that were you were you were you into sort of that when you talk about Floyd Tyler and Paul and Jimmy Garrison, Paul the John Coltrane, that modal, incredible spiritual music, but like, were you aware of that? What the East-West collaboration of like Al Rocker and Buddy Rich.
Yeah. That one I know. I knew that one early on. Yeah, I was, the thing about the hippie world was that the indie music came in as a side effect to the whole hippie thing, and I started admiring the sounds of it, and I didn't know much about it for a long time. But then of course I got into Mahavishnu, and then all of a sudden John did his Shakti group, and then I got inspired to look into that more, and so that has been a huge influence on me ever since. So
can you explain like the influence in terms of playing the electric bass, just because most of the rhythm section comes from percussion in Indian music. You don't often see a bass. I mean, you saw Gary Peacock, yeah.
No, but for me it was that like the sound of when I started working on slap technique on bass. It was very much inspired by tabla and ghatam, the percussion instruments in Shakti. Sure. It was that sound I was after.
Wow.
So that and that kind of fluidity that I have, it just flows. It's very fast. It's very 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 technical, but it's not clumsy. It's very elegant, and that is what I wanted to achieve in my bass playing. That was what I was trying to do. How successful I was or not, it's for somebody else to judge. But that was my inspiration.
I'm not really a technique or theory-based guy, but when I was watching these videos of you playing with John, it was just so funny because John's playing this kind of amplified acoustic guitar and you're playing this double neck bass. Like, when did that come into your hands? I mean, I can't. Was that how did you construct that? I mean, there was so much. You had.
It was a very pragmatic decision. It was when I started playing with John, when we got that Mahavishnu group together. I was doing fretless bass and I was doing some fretted bass, and sometimes I wanted to be able to do it in the same song. So the only way to do that was to have a double neck bass with fretted and fretless, so I could switch between the necks. And that's just how it happened. And there was this great couple of guys in London who were making basses called Wall. It was Ian Waller and Peter Fish, two guys, and they made me that bass.
Was there anything before this that you saw somebody playing? It was just something that was completely your invention?
No, there was nothing before. I mean, the only thing that could have inspired it a bit was that John himself had a double neck guitar with the original Mahavishnu group, and that was a cool image. There was a nice look, but no, but
nice
really,
look. Yeah, it was a nice look. Yeah. No, this is really important because I've interviewed John himself, but like, I really would love you to maybe it was not as romantic as your situation, but I remember when Narda Michael Walden, when I interviewed him, he talked about when John came to visit him to have him join Mahavishnu after Billy left, and they're in a cabin. Narda had a cabin in Michigan, and and John said, "Let's pray," and so they're praying, and Narda is all of a sudden he hears this dripping sound, this very loud, like, almost like, and he's like, "Oh my God, what is that? A sink? Do I have a leak? I don't want to interrupt Mahavishnu here. What's going on? Why is it?" And he opens his eyes after the prayer, and John was weeping. He was crying,
Uh-huh.
and the tears were just coming down on the floor. And I mean, it was just a very heavy sort of induction into, you know, filling Billy Cobham's shoes. That is a daunting task. But there it is,
Yeah.
John, you know, with this searing sort of spiritual recognition of Narda. And being that you, when you first heard Intermounting Flame and you wanted to play with John,
Yeah.
and you talk about in '81 when you got introduced to all those heavy cats like Michael Brecker and Chick McLaughlin, like that experience when you opened your heart to ask John to play with him. Was there some, can you talk about that?
Well, what happened was, you know, at the Montreux Jazz Festival, Michael Brecker introduced me to John, and he told John, because Michael had heard me play, and he told John that I was a great
Out of this
player,
world.
yeah, and so, and that, I mean, that was of course a very monumental situation for me to be there with these heroes of mine, and they are bragging about me. So that was. But anyway, I didn't count on anything. I didn't actually believe that anything was going to happen. But then in '82, I was up in Stockholm recording a record with a piano player called Michael Smith, and he had brought in Michael Shreve. And Michael Shreve went out for a walk in the morning before the recording session, and he just happened to bump into John McLaughlin, who asked him what he was doing in Stockholm, and he explained that he was doing a record with me and this Michael Smith guy. And it just happened that John was playing with the guitar trio at the concert house in Stockholm that night. So we got invited to come to the show, and I met John the second time, and John told me, "Oh, we're going to do something together." Okay, wow, that's amazing. But I still didn't believe it. I still didn't believe it. But then a few months later, he actually called me and left a message on my answering machine and said that he wanted me to be part of the new Mahavishnu band that he was putting together.
Can you talk
I mean, that,
yeah.
And of course, there was the one dream come true in my life. There was like, that's really what I had dreamt of doing, and it happened. And he called me to join his group, and that was wonderful.
You know, just for the audience's sake, you know, can you talk about his concept for that Mahavishnu group? Some of my favorite John McLaughlin stuff is the stuff he made before he even came to the States on Polydor. It was just very burning jazz. He played on a record with Joe Farrell. But then, what was it, like 83, 84 that you joined his band? When was this?
Yeah, exactly. I think 83 was the first thing we did.
What was in his mind? How did he want? What was the point of view, or not to make it, not for difference sake, but where was he coming from when he put this band together?
I don't think it was just he had music, he had compositions he wanted to play and play them, and that was it. It was I don't think there was a any kind of
and there was no manifesto. There was no
no, nothing like that. And I mean, the first thing we did was this trio gig with Cobham, me and Cobham and John in Paris at the TV studio. And so
that was so insane.
Yeah, so he had wait, what did we play? We played Are You the One, which is on his electric guitarist album. And he had a song also called Blues for LW. And we just played it. He just gave me the music, I learned, and we played it. That's how it was.
One of the L's on my show is leadership, and I kind of wanted you to. I remember Eddie Henderson telling me that so many younger cats today are given these leadership roles before they're really ready to become leaders. And you go back in time to Art Blakey, look who came out of that band, Cedar Walton and Bobby Timmons and Lee Morgan and Freddie Hubbard. And, they had to go through an apprenticeship before they became leaders. Even Michael Shreve playing in the R&B clubs in Palo Alto, and before Santana. And then, and I just wonder with you, not that you were, driven to have power and be a leader, but I wanted you to talk about what you believe are the most important qualities of leadership on the bandstand.
Well, I am a great believer in collaboration, and I'm a great believer in allowing everybody to do what they are destined to do, or to do what comes natural to them. And if there is such a thing as leadership, it's about helping people to realize their potential, to go into things and to do without restrictions, not putting limitations on people, but allowing them. Another way of putting it, and another way of approaching it, is that I see it as framing people's talents, which very often in my case I have had to take the back seat a little bit and just like step back and allow people to exist, and then just kind of guide into a certain area of performance of music that people wouldn't dare doing otherwise. You can take the example of Sean Lane, who was when I met him, when we started playing together, he was very much into like very arranged compositions and very concerned about what people would think, and I kind of told him that no, you just have to play and don't be afraid to screw up, just go for it and have no limitations. Just we will go on stage and we will just improvise. We will play no songs, everything totally improvised from the first minute to the last. And we did it, and it broke him open, it opened him up. And when I played with Ginger Baker, for instance, I mean, Ginger, of course, is like
hero.
Sort of, yeah, but he is. But it's also people expect certain things. They go to a gig where he's involved, and everybody wants him to play "Sunshine of Your Love," and I wanted him to explore and to express all the African roots he has, all the African influence, and all this, and to play pieces that were an hour long, not like be concerned about it being a song format or comprehensible to people. It just, what is the quality in his playing? Just go for it, do that. Don't
and don't be shackled by what the papers, just off.
And all not to be shackled by your belief, what people would expect from you.
That's right.
Like, it's not about what people actually would expect, because they will be open, they will go with you, but if you think you yourself think that, I have to do this in order to be popular or in order to be accepted, that's another thing for me is that this popularity contest that has been going on now for several decades, where everybody wants to be the biggest star in the world, and it's more important that you are popular than that you are making music that helps you with yourself.
Absolutely.
Because music is therapy. Music is about self-discovery, and that is the purpose. It's not about making money or having a gig, or being popular or being respected or being admired. It is, what does it do to you internally when you play? How does it develop you as a human being? I mean, Christ, we're all going to die soon. Life is short. You know, what is popularity going to help you? And who gives a shit if you're popular after you die? You're dead. You're gone.
Gone, yeah, that's right.
You know, so
um did you ever meet Steve Swallow before?
yeah, sure, yeah.
Because I don't know, he talked about a lot about sometimes he has just sort of dedicated his life to and again, jazz. Some people will say, how could you play that instrument? That's not, you can't play that for real jazz, the electric bass.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone around and really made it a point to try to give people an open mind about that, how that electric bass can fit into all forms of music, especially jazz. Did you play? Not that you received pushback from it, but how have you tried to assimilate that instrument into more quote unquote acceptable forms of Judeo, classical music or even jazz? I just, some of the best jazz records, are guys are playing electric bass, and I just wonder if that's something that, not that you've carried a banner for it, but you've tried to open people's minds, especially because there's so much, Jonas, going on right now. We didn't really talk about this, but cats are going into the academy. Their professors are, I'm glad they're making a paycheck, but they are teaching their students completely differently than the way they were taught, because they actually were on touring circuits on the bandstand. I mean, the amount of guys that I've interviewed that didn't even graduate Berkeley. They just got on the road. So, and that would be anathema today. So now you come to university, and these languages that we've been talking about musically have all been codified. And I don't think you can codify a street language like blues and jazz, but yet they do. So now students come out sounding like their professors. So there's this conformity. And how have you tried to keep people's minds open? Is it merely just through playing in those environments, or do you sometimes have to advocate for your own instrument in any musical setting?
Well, in a way, I don't give a shit, actually, because
that's the perfect answer, man. I love that. Yeah.
No, because basically I do what I do, and what people want to do is what they do, and if they like something, they like something. If they don't like it, they don't like it, and that's all there is to it. And the world changes. You have to really realize this, that society, culture, people's behavior, people's occupations, it's in a constant flux. You cannot be stuck in a reality that was. Whatever we did back then, it's not now. And whatever people will always have prejudice about what can be played in here, and what is real jazz, what is real funk, what is real rock, and you cannot play this instrument in that kind of music, and it's all bollocks. I mean, you play music. If you hear it, you play it. And for me, my instrument is my voice. I cannot change my voice. This is the voice I speak with. It might be a nice voice to somebody. It might, some people don't want to hear my fucking voice because it's annoying. It's irritating. So fine, but that is the only way I have to speak. So my bass guitar is my instrument. That is what I can play with. So if I want to play a cello suite of Bach, I do it. I just pick up the bass and I read the music and I play it. Or I actually did a lot of that in the 90s. I had a quasi-classical ensemble, and we were playing all kinds of music like Stravinsky, Bartok, Kagel,
Wow.
Bart, you name it, and so it was with the bass,
Right.
and you know, I did it because I wanted to play this music, and there were people that listened to it and they liked it, and if people would hear it and be upset about it, well, that's too bad for them that they got upset. It's you cannot have it. I mean that is what people do. So let them have it. And I tell you not.
Yeah, you're not an ambassador for what you have. Your voice. It's the only voice you have, and
Yeah.
you're not going to please everybody, and that doesn't matter. I mean,
No.
did.
Yes, indeed, and as I said, what is true today is not going to be true tomorrow. What people are into today, they're not going to be into tomorrow. How music sounded 40 years ago is not the way it sounds today. And if I have something to contribute because I come from a different era when there were qualities that have been lost now, I can try to put those qualities back into the community of music, and that is the contribution I can have. Just like you meet people from another generation, earlier musicians who did stuff, and you play with them, and oh man, you can do this, you can do that, it can be like this or be like that. Yeah, that's
It's beautiful. It's as we wrap up set one here with Jonas Hellborg, I just one of my L's on my show is love, and some people say God is sound, God is love. To me, I did an interview with my fifth interview with Michael Shreve a few months ago. It was really, he really came to me at a time. He always goes there with me, but we had a great time. And then I started to transcribe some of the quotes, and out of the blue, somebody started to chime in on these quotes, and it turned out to be your life partner, Anna Patan. And I just kind of want, she is, I've never met her. I don't pretend to know her, but her spirit transcends who she is in this life, in this place. And I can feel that, and she is very loving, and she is a very big supporter of people that she feels are coming from a honest place. And I kind of wanted to just talk about, the love that you have for her.
Say that again. You want me to talk about
just the love and appreciation that you have for her.
Well, we have grown together, it's been 16, 17 years now. And we have this exceptional relationship where we function together, we think alike, we inspire each other, and we work together and we work separate, and we explore and expand, we travel, and we live in the forests, and surrounded by animals, and
Wow.
Yeah, it's an exceptional existence that we have together, and that we have developed over these almost 2 decades now.
What is your concept of love?
Concept of love?
Yeah.
It is if you love somebody, be it a human or an animal or spirit or whatever, you give. You don't expect. You don't put any demands, and no judgment or no disappointment. If you love, you support, and you make everything possible for that person to exist and to prosper. And you're not jealous or judgmental or aggressive or combative or in competition or yeah, it's
unconditional.
it is like the love of a parent for his child or her child, it's well, you know, you give your life. I mean, it's all for that. That is love. Love is not lust. Love is not desire. Love is not possessiveness. Love is not identification with. It is you see something and you say, oh, that's wonderful. This person is wonderful. This art is wonderful. This food is wonderful. This place on the planet is wonderful. The planet is wonderful. Yeah. That is love.
Yeah, that's beautiful. No, just maybe we can do. I know you're going to start a project with a guy I haven't interviewed yet, but he is a legend, Bobby Vega. You have this collaboration coming up, so maybe we let this breathe for a while. But I'd love to do set 2 with you down the road and continue to talk philosophic about some of these issues, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an honor to connect with you.
Mm-hmm. And you know, one thing I want to say also, since you talked about Michael Fried there a lot, and
yes,
you know,
please. I mean,
Michael is probably the most important person in my musical career, and he's been part of every shift that has happened to me when I've gone from one existence to another, one style of music to another. He's always been around. He's always been there. We had lots of collaborations, and more than anything, on a human level, on a personal level, he's a great inspiration. Has always been very helpful to me and other people. And he's always been.
I want to be clear though, like, because I'm going back to the story when he ran into McLaughlin on a morning walk. You guys were already in the studio, going to make a record. But how did you? Michael was doing Automatic Man, then he was doing the Go with Stomu. When did you first cross paths? How did you become so close with him?
It was then. It was that record that we did in 1982, and you know, he was instrumental in getting me the gig with Mahavishnu, and then he invited me to come over to New York, and I was staying with him in New York, and he introduced me to 100 million people. So he connected me with Bill Laswell, for instance, when he was doing. He was playing for Mick Jagger's first solo record that Bill was producing, and they were in Bahamas, actually, I think it was. And Michael was talking to Laswell about me, and Laswell knew about me, and he told Michael that, okay, if he comes to New York, tell him to look me up, and I did, and that started.
That must have been insane. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And so many other things that happened later. It's Michael's been around my life for a good 40 years now. So he's special.
He absolutely. I think it's beyond words. Actually, I must say he's always been there since our friendship has been so helpful, and also just opening doors for other musicians too, on the bandstand, and just loving. He just loves. Sir, he knows what he loves. He loves art. He loves high art. He loves creative, different people, and he's also, very much connected to source. That was my only thing. What is your view on your connection to God?
To God?
I mean, are you an atheist, agnostic? Do you believe in the spirit? I mean, my feeling is
Yes, I'm a. Well, yes. The simple answer is this: yes, I'm an atheist. My main house philosopher is Bertrand Russell, and no, I do not believe in God in the traditional sense. Now you can start to modulate the semantics of what that is, and say a lot of stuff, and then find something that you can name God or a spirit or all that. But in simple terms, no, I cannot get around that concept of a creator of the world, of some kind of judgmental uber being who's up there and controlling things. The way I look at it,
from a monotheistic sense, I understand you have your own non-traditional way of viewing spirituality. I mean, in terms of,
well, yes, the spirituality is part of. That is what we are. We are spiritual beings, but so are the elks and the dogs. I don't see a difference between humans and animals. There's no great division there. They have the same sort of intelligences and awareness and fears and hopes and desires and logic and intellect, like we do. It's and to believe that we understand something about existence is very what's the word?
Naive.
We don't.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know much. There's much in existence that we just haven't figured out, and we don't have to, because we live on a certain mental plane where we function, and what's the point of explaining music? You experience music.
Mm-hmm.
And music itself, it's if you talk about the intuition of health, of how do you stay healthy, how do you stay happy, it is, you don't have to know all the technical details about it. You sense it, and your instinct is correct. You just go with it, and some people know how to put mechanical things together just by intuition. They see it. There are savants that can do very complex math just because they just see it in their heads. It is this dependence on intellectualism that is a problem, I think, because you live now here. This is the moment, but if you rely on the narrative of the explanation of existence, of the words, of the logic of it, then you live in the past or the future. You're not present, and you don't live in a real reality. You live in a intellectual construct, and that I guess is the problem with religion or believing in God. Because if you say God, you have to make up some kind of explanation of what that is. And if you don't, if you just now exist, and if you feel a power of some sort, or if you feel like a guiding hand that leads you, your intuition, your instinct to, okay, this is the right decision, I have to do this, and you don't know where it comes from. Okay, so when you start describing it to yourself or to others, you can say, as an alternative, you can say, oh, God told me to do this. No, it wasn't that. You lived in that moment, and you were present, and you allowed the powers that rule the universe to make the right decision. But the explanation is, you could explain it like from a scientific point of view, like it was your uber self taking care of you. It was your deep subconscious saying stuffing. Or you can say that it was God telling you, or you can say a lot of things. But the reality is, you don't even have to make that explanation. You exist, and you open your mind, and you open your senses, and you take it all in, and you observe, and you guide yourself instinctively from what you instinctively know is right. You don't need a lesson in morals and ethics. You know what is correct. Everybody knows what is good and what is bad. And I'm not saying this without being judgmental about it. It's if you are not ruled by some kind of philosophy, some kind of ideology or religion or whatever, if you're awake, aware, you're not concerned about the past, you're not concerned about the future, you're right now, right here, then yeah, then you can be a good person, and you can be effective, and you can influence people in a good way.
Have you talk about this the phenomena that exists that we don't understand and we don't need to understand. On sort of level, you have, I mean, this is a very not sophisticated, but it's a beautiful way of looking at things, and there's a lot of clarity in it, and I just wonder if you've always held these beliefs, or if there was a certain point in your life when you just surrendered to the idea of saying it's actually better not to know this phenomena, and because you know why? Because you talk about these moments where people talk about God being in their life, coming into their life, helping them through something traumatic or miracle or whatever, and you say, no, that's just you being present in the moment. And actually, what you're really talking about on a bigger level is being a shepherd and not a sheep. You think you have individual thought. Because what happens in these monotheistic religions is people lean on this idea of, oh, that was God intervention, and so it becomes groupthink, which is what really happens at a macro level in this, as we move towards whatever we're moving towards, autocracy, fascism, the idea of thinking all groupthink, because it's a very simple explanation, as opposed to staying individual. And like I look at Jonas Hellborg, and I look at Sultan Khan and Reebok and Michael Shreve and Steve Roach and Bill Laswell. I mean, it's all this one big gumbo. So my question is, when did you surrender to this philosophy, and have you always been somebody who is an independent? How have you avoided, in general, how have you avoided the dogma of life?
I don't think there is a singular moment that is so transformative. Everything develops. Everything is in, as I said before, everything is in a flux and transformation.
Right, it's a continuum.
Yeah, exactly, and it just goes on and goes on. But somewhere along the line, I understood and I appreciated that no human being is worth more than any other human being. No human being is more right or wrong than any other human being. And and there is definitely no superhuman who is absolutely correct and right and admirable. We are all pretty screwed up, and we're trying our best with the best intention.
Right. Yeah,
with the best intention, and just because you have a talent, like you can do something on an instrument that is very flashy, doesn't mean that you can deliver the greatest emotional impact for other people and do what music really needs. You have these old blues guys, for instance, and that that's where my musical interest really started. These guys that they can't sing, they can't play, but they do it, and it's so fucking powerful, and it's so beautiful. They don't know how to tune a guitar, they don't know anything, they're just like hammering on something, and it's in a conventional sense not music, but it's super powerful. And you can have the same thing with kids, and before they learn to play. And then of course you have people who develop incredible vocabulary on instruments, and they can do these amazing things, and they seduce you and they bring you to the skies. It's incredible. But the thing is just different people doing different things, and nothing is more valuable than anything else. And we are all beings that have a spark in a short term spark of consciousness, of awareness, that we feel we are alive, we are here, we're doing. And that is what you have to value. That's what you have to keep. That, oh, I'm alive. I'm eating. I'm loving. I'm breathing. I'm drinking. I'm listening to music. I'm seeing something incredibly beautiful. And and I'm part of it. And that's right back to the 60s. That is what is lost. That's what needs to come back. It's this sense of community, that when you see somebody that is not like you, and you see them and you say, wow, man, far out, who are you? Oh, you've never seen somebody like you before. But now it is like, oh, that person looks suspicious now.
Right, they're weird.
I don't want
Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, you nailed it, man.
I don't want any of those around here. No, come here.
Right, we can't have any of that.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. So, and it goes back to what you said about Bill Cosby, and you're apprehensive about admiring him. I'm not. I think he's wonderful. I think Bill Cosby was wonderful. He's a human, and he is a human being who was on top of it at a certain age, where sexual liberties was at their peak, and drug taking and decadent life, it was accepted. So he did some things that maybe in today's moral code is not acceptable at all. But you have to put it in perspective of time. Back then, that is what people did. If you look into that, you will take the whole elite of society and you can just throw all of them in jail for pedophilia, for debauchery. It's not. I don't buy this stuff. It is a change. Everything is changing, and I'm not in any sort of way defending bad behavior or saying that it's cool to have sex with underage human beings. I mean, of course, there is a real morality that goes into it. Like, you have to protect, and you have to actually love in the real way, like we talked about. If you really love somebody, you protect them, and you don't allow them to get into this kind of situations that they cannot handle. But at the same time, you have to give freedom. If people do certain things, they do certain things, and if people fail, they fail. It doesn't mean that you have to execute them because they made a mistake. You have to forgive.
No, I know. Sometimes I feel these two interviews are magical. It's just, sometimes it's more than just having two daughters of my own. It's not even the underage part of it, which is bad enough. It's just more like, again, it was the time, the drugging of just the idea of, I am so powerful that I will be able to have my way. That is the only thing that sort of just comes at it and says, again, you're right. You could throw everyone in the upper crust of society in jail.
Yeah. Yes.
It's just, like I said, it's this, and believe me, when I go to concerts, Jonas, and I don't go to stadium concerts, I go to small bars, jazz clubs, blues clubs, and it is a tribal experience for me. This is not about pacification. This is about being in front of the band, right in front of the bandstand, getting the full vibration of the band, and really having almost out-of-body experiences. And there are people, younger cats, it is completely abhorrent to them. And it also speaks to how how the significance of music has changed in our culture in this country, where music is made for pacification. It's made, you receive the music. You clap after a song, even if you don't like it. No, this is about, when I saw you and Billy and John last night, I was like, I couldn't believe that people were sitting down for this stuff. I would have been dancing. I mean, this is what music is made for healing. It is made for tribal healing. And that is, and so I know the conformist police around, it doesn't bother me because I feel reborn every time I see and feel musicians who are playing beyond what they know, that they've forgotten about their thinking mind, they're in the spirit mind. Man, that's the thing that's magical about the period of time that you were able to taste in that movement of togetherness in the 60s, is that it was all good. Everything went together, and that's what we're missing now, is this, even the people that call themselves super progressive or liberal, they're some of the most intolerant people around. And so, that's part of my show, is to get back to this idea. I remember David Spinoza, the great guitar player producer, he said in the 70s, he's like, he overheard someone saying, "Oh wow, this would be great music to talk over." He's like, "Who talks over music? It's not about it is about burning. This is about burning. That's it. End of story." And so anyway, I'm just riffing off the cuff, but listen, this email, can we communicate through this email that you have?
Yes, of course, yes. What email do you have, actually? I've forgotten.
Let's see. Let me see. I have Jonas at hellborg.com.
Yep, that's it.
Good.
That's the one.
Hey, it was so beyond inspiring to talk to you this morning, man. At least where I am, I look forward to doing some more work, because I have some good videos to send you. I did with my dear brother Steve Roach. He talked about you a lot, and we have more to do. So it's just thank you so much for taking the time, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure, absolutely, and anytime, just hit me up. And
yeah, I want also I would love, at some point, the basic thing. I need, if you have if you have any,
sure.
I'd love to hear that album.
I will dig out some tape somewhere, so make you a copy.
Much love to you, Jonas.
Yeah, you too, man. And anytime, you don't even have to set up anything in advance. If you want to do something, just call me up and we'll do it. Anytime.
I guess I'll email you, or send me your number, whatever. Yeah. All Sounds right. Good, man. Go see the animals. Have a good day.
Okay.
All right. Cheers, man. Bye.